Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. 'Tis I, Mike Martins, bringing you another Mike in the Night special edition for you guys. Everyone's asleep, everyone's nice and quiet, and the house is on shutdown. It's the only room occupied is this little office where I'm broadcasting from Merritt, British Columbia. With the frigid temperatures we're having here, it is cold. It is -3 degrees, but parts of Chicago, which we'll be covering here on the show, and this bizarro weather we're having. And plus, guys, don't forget to join us this Saturday, 7 p.m. Western, 9 p.m. Western Seaboard, for our global warming debate. We'll be dropping the gloves with Kevin Baker and Evan, our truth analyst here on the Mike Martins channel. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and joining and jumping on the chat. So Mr. A-Team says we're going to get it Sunday, they said, for the weather. We got Evan on the line right now from Hong Kong. Evan, how are you?
I am well. I didn't know I was fighting Kevin Baker on Sunday, mate. What's this about?
Kevin Baker, dude. Andrew Baker, sorry.
There you go. I don't know when Kevin Baker's birthday is, but I wish Andrew Baker a happy birthday.
Everyone's, it's like a whole 2 weeks later, and everyone's still wishing the guy happy birthday, giving him the high five and the thumbs up.
That's right. Isn't he lucky that people remember his birthday so well?
Romeo is saying, man, stock is up and down and down. Yeah, it's going to go up, down, down, down. Up, 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 down, down, down. It's going to trick people into jumping in the market, but we'll probably get Andrew Baker on the next live stream later this evening from Sydney. He can give us an explanation on what's happening with that. But right now, we have our truth analyst from Hong Kong, Evan, who is ready for the fight. Are you ready for the global warming debate this Saturday?
Oh, I've written down notes furiously, Mike. I have this one piece of paper, and all I wrote on it was, it's a scam. I should be all right with that, shouldn't I, Mike?
Yeah. Okay. Evan, I know I spring these articles on you from time to time. I throw up articles from time to time. And a lot of people need to understand, Evan, that you're the real deal. And a lot of people need to understand on this channel that we do not pre-rehearse anything. You have no idea what I'm going to be talking about. Can you explain that to people?
Oh, it's a total blindfold, because when we chat to Mike, usually I'm somewhere else doing something else. I tend to have my ear on the ground, so when Mike throws an article at me, the trick is to find the principle of the article. What are they actually trying to tell you? Not what the words tell you. And you'll find that a lot of these popular articles are designed to sway your mind to their nefarious ends. And if you know they're liars, and you go in with that assumption when it comes to the media, generally you'll find lies.
Mm-hmm. That's generally speaking, yes, you are correct, 100%, my friend. So, guys, I'm going to kick it off tonight. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. My main channel, please don't forget to hit me up in the tip jar to keep this transmission going. So we're going to start with a really devastating article. So Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe in one chart. The only losers are the people, the grave suffering presence of generalized national risk to Yemen's future. I don't even know what that means, but anyway, Yemen humanitarian figures as of December 3rd, 2018. So Evan, I want to tell you this, and you got to give us an answer on why this is happening. So, population of Yemen is 28.7 million estimated population, 22.2 million total in need of humanitarian assistance of 28.7. How is that even possible?
Oh, how did they get those numbers? I'd like to see the statistician who did that. But how is that even possible, Mike? Well, you've had the Saudi Arabians and the Americans and the Israelis all dropping bombs on them continuously since even when Obama was in. It's been the new Afghanistan. They've been getting all sorts of weapons contracts through on the basis of that. Of course, Israel wants their Greater Israel project, and Yemen's in the crosshairs for that. So was Syria, and they want to gain territory, of course, because then they'll have the border, well, the bridge to Africa, the bridge to Asia, and the bridge to Europe, won't they? If they control that territory. And on top of that, that'll put pressure and resources at an all-time high, won't it? You'll have more oil domination, oil monopolies, that sort of thing, Mike.
Wow.
How about that?
It's almost like they're being punished for being located there.
Yes, in a way, yes. I'd say that would be a good way to describe it, Mike. They just happen to be in the way. Now they've got to get out of the way or be obliterated.
That's not fair. It's like social media. We're being punished because Hillary lost the election. Now, ever since she lost the election, the whole social media and all the shutdown of everything and, you know, this whole fake news stuff and, like, it's crazy. Ever since she lost the election, it's been a downhill. We've been punished for it. You know what I mean?
Well, they use, it doesn't matter which way a story goes, though, Mike. Let's say, oh, Yemen's having a humanitarian crisis, therefore take in more Syrian refugees. They use that, if you recall. You know, not a single Yemeni refugee. It was all, that was a truck. All Syrian refugees, Mike. All of them. Every last one of them. The entire population of Syria has shifted into Europe for some reason. Not next door, but Europe.
Okay, so let's start from the top again. 28.7 million people in Yemen is the estimated population. 22.2 million in need of humanitarian assistance. 16 million lack access to drinking water and sanitation.
Well, what were they bombing, Mike? They were bombing all the infrastructure, hospitals and things of that sort of nature, pipelines and hospitals. So I imagine they don't have fresh drinking water when everything's just rubble and puddles. And it's not like it's a high rainfall area, Yemen.
And then
so they'll be struggling a lot.
And now they're saying 15.9 million severely food insecure. And then 5 million at emergency levels, just short of famine.
Well, here's the thing. Who's giving Yemen aid, really? Good question, right?
I think it's... I know Russia's been doing a bit.
Russia has, but I mean, you can't feed an entire... Well, you could, but generally it's not feasible to feed an entire country forever continuously. So,
and I know China's been giving them aid too.
Yeah, it would not surprise me, Mike. But if that's the case, then why do we have these numbers? If they were helping, or were they doing a token effort of aid, like most countries do? You know, they say we're supporting this, that, and the other, and then you see the result of it, like what they had with the charities in Afghanistan and all the aid. Look at Afghanistan now, still just an opium factory for foreign powers, and bombed and tested for bombs numerous times a day. Same with Iraq and all the other places. They reduced them to rubble, Mike.
So we got 5 million emergency levels of food short of famine. We got that already. 1.26 million suspected of cholera cases. 2,700 cases of diarrhea.
Well, it's fetid water, Mike. Cholera is a waterborne issue. You know, you're drinking bad water. Usually it thrives in dirty water. Does not surprise me, and that would tie in, of course, with the water shortage. So whatever water they do have, especially in urban centres, would be very, very poor. Rural, if they're in the rural areas of Yemen, you know, where farms are, unless they've been bombing farms. But as far as I know, I'm yet to hear such a thing, blowing up cows and whatnot. Haven't seen that. So if you're in the city, you're in a concentrated disease factory at the moment.
Okay, so we got 2.8 million internally displaced persons. 2.8 million internally displaced persons of 28.7 million. That's 10%.
That's quite a lot. That's 10% of the population. Is it 10% of the population? Like Yemen's what? 50 million, is it not?
No, Yemen's estimated population is 28.7 million. And
28.7. Okay.
Yeah, so 2.8 million are internally displaced.
Well, that is 10% then, Mike. But I mean, I imagine most of them left the capital to not get bombed. if I were to guess. I mean, once the infrastructure's gone, a lot of people just won't live there, will they? Because if you can't get food, you can't get water.
Okay, in basic textbook war, like basic textbook, we want to take Yemen. Don't we want to take the capital so we could take control of the country?
Well, no, they don't seem to do that with certain countries, do they? I mean, if you look at Venezuela at the moment, that's what they're doing. That's textbook CIA jackal sort of behavior, where you implant the opposition, create a fake coup, and take over Venezuela. Regardless of the policies, that's generally what they do in South America. When it comes to the Middle East, as it's called, and I mean, Yemen's not really even the Middle East. You know, it's a different kettle of fish altogether geographically. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the Middle East, they seem to just reduce everything to rubble, like absolutely everything. I'm wondering if there is another agenda behind that, because if you think about it, in Iraq, for example, they had some of the most priceless and ancient antiques in their museums. And what did they do?
Destroyed.
They stole everything and blew up the museum. Isn't that interesting? So it could be the case with Yemen. There is history that they don't want you to know, so they are going to replace Yemen like they did with Armenia. They turned Armenia into other countries, didn't they?
Yeah.
There's no Armenia anymore. You have Azerbaijan, the fake country.
Azerbaijan, yes. But Evan, in biblical times, Mesopotamia is what it is now known as Iraq, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to...
That's where Babylon was. I mean, was it not Saddam Hussein who said he will rebuild Babylon? And biblical prophecy says, no, 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 it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And he got wiped out. And Syria will no longer be a city. So I don't see not Syria, Damascus. I got that wrong. Damascus will no longer be a city. That was, I believe it was Jeremiah who said it in one of his prophecies. And they said that about the city of Tyre, or Tyre, depends how you say it. And that was Alexander the Great who wiped that city out. So biblical prophecy is always on the money. So I'd be curious to see. There's no mention of Yemen, though, Mike, seeing it was a rather recent country.
It's more, it's definitely more recent, because the Syrians weren't they like that area of weren't they the Phoenicians?
We had the Phoenicians, the Etruscans. They were more north, past Greece, and then you had the Assyrians, didn't you, which conquered a lot of that area, and then you had Egypt's influence as well.
Right. Egypt goes way back. Egypt's like one of the first on the maps.
No, that's right. You've got Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, Scythia, Tartaria, those sort of places where a lot of them are. And Dacia as well. I mean, the Romans have it on their victory arch in Rome, statues of Dacian warriors, and everyone goes, "What's a Dacian?" Because it's not in the history books anymore. You never learn about that. They erase what they can when they can, Mike.
Oh yeah, of course, because they want history to repeat itself. Okay, so let's start with Yemen. I kind of wanted to touch base with here.
Hold on, Mike. I got one more point to make, and you could probably look this up on your screen. Look at the Turkish Genghis Khan statue.
Turkish Genghis Khan statue. All right, let me find it.
Genghis Khan. Yeah. Look at the Turkish Genghis Khan statue. That's an older statue, and if you look at old paintings of Genghis Khan, you'll see something interesting. Just to go with the history erasure thing.
You want statue, right?
Oh, it should be a bust. B-U-S-T.
Looking it up right now as we speak.
Live on air. Fantastic.
Okay, this is what I'm getting, bud. And
what's it look like?
What am I looking for exactly?
Does it look? It should be a bronze statue.
Yeah, it is. It's right here, brass.
And it doesn't look at all Chinese. That one there.
This one.
Notice that, Mike? Could very well be. I can't see, Mike. I'll have to trust you.
Okay.
But there is a lot of history erasure going on, as you'll find. A lot of that area of the world where it's been reduced to rubble pre-World War II.
Oh, I see. He does not look Asian here.
He does not. And if you look at the paintings, they look white as a ghost. They look very European indeed. And you got you know, European mummies under Chinese pyramids. They won't tell you about that either, Mike. That's historical fact.
Wow. In this one of Genghis Khan here, this one here, this brass one, he looks Norseman.
He does, doesn't he? Isn't that interesting? Why would they carve him that way? And then the scientist will, of course, say, "Oh well, primitive people, right? You know what they do? They think you look like them. You see." That's what scientists will tell you. And I can tell you right now, if you're a sculptor, you're supposed to sculpt what it is usually, and painters are supposed to paint what there is, so that people know what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, scientists know best, Mike. Those people who can't verify upwards of 50% of their research, you know, peer-reviewed, whatever that means. That's just a publication term.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they do have domination of the information, Mike. But if you ask a question, you cut through what they're saying quite quickly. They will declare something, and then all you need to do is ask a question, and then they've got to try and defend it. And they can't, because they've got no basis for what they've been told either. Either they become honest and ask a question, or they stick with the lie and say, "I have a PhD in X, Y, and Z. I will tell you how history is. Don't look at it for yourself." But back to your point, Mike.
All right. Now let's jump topics here. Let's get some fun going here for our cryptocurrency watchers, people that watch us that do invest in cryptocurrencies and signed up for the AMTV course. $300 US for the AMTV cryptocurrency course that he's been offering on a 24-hour live stream for the last year.
Yes.
Well, breaking news. India's central bank authorizes cryptocurrencies. That's from today.
Oh, fantastic. That's great news, Mike. I mean, Russia wants to do a state-controlled cryptocurrency. It's as if they're getting a cashless society ready under the basis of crypto and having the get-rich-quick scheme to get people fanatic about it so that you can soften people up to the idea. And then when you don't have cash and they say your card doesn't work, what can you do? That is the question. You can't appeal to a robot, Mike.
Oh, that's right. You can't. I don't know what movie that was where the guy was arguing with the robot and the robot said, "Are you trying to get smart with me?"
Very clever.
Yeah.
They do have, they're getting better with language synthesis with robots. There was a program a long time ago in the 2000s, well, not that long ago, but quite a long time ago. It was called Alice, I believe, and you could, you know, those conversation robots where you could ask it and it learned as it went along, and you could ask it impossible questions that it couldn't answer, and it would say, "I have no idea what that question is, and I don't have an answer for it," the robot would say. But these days, robots are not working in your interest generally. Mm-hmm. You do get the occasional wacky one. Oh, look how cute it is. With
the movie's called Elysium.
Elysium, yes, yeah. That one.
Sam Askey in the comments there said that. I just looked over for a sec.
Oh, yeah. Well, there is the other film called Surrogates, which is another one where they have the robotic avatars, and they're basically jacked into a robot.
Oh, yes.
Came out at about the same time. That had Bruce Willis in it, doing what Bruce Willis does best, which is having no facial expression at all, mm-hmm. and pouting constantly. Old mm-hmm. Bruce Willis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the crypto community in India is also going to benefit massively from the new development. We expect that the ban that removed banking support for crypto exchanges will be lifted. So it's an ongoing report. So it looks
opening the door, Mike. Opening the door to, you know, what would you say, money laundering exchanges.
Because the government's opening it up, and they're going to put rules and regulations into place, of course, because everyone wants their cut, right?
Well, that's the thing. They're going to take a cut, and then is it profitable when the transactions are so rapid? That's the other problem. I mean, that's the biggest issue with Bitcoin at the moment, and Ethereum, is mechanically they require too much computation now in order to do any sort of transaction. So transaction slows down to a halt. The most interesting one I saw was Burstcoin, which maps a hard drive in order to store the currency physically. But then, you know, how reliable is a hard drive?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's
Next
now.
question.
I wouldn't bank my life savings on a hard drive. Believe me, I would never
Well,
do that.
if I drop a coin in, let's say I drop a coin in a river, 50 years later, the coin's probably still sitting at the bottom of the lake, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But a hard drive, I don't think it'd fare so well.
That's right. No, no. Okay, I know you're in Hong Kong, and I'm going to read this article. Canada must reassess its approach to China. If not, we may get steamrolled by the world's new juggernauts. This is posted 5 hours ago. Evan, on your side of the lake, what's going on, man? Are you hearing anything about Canada? Why is China at Canada's throat? I mean, what is the uncertainty and tensions between Canada and China? I know with the Howie and all that crap, or Hawaii, whatever.
Well,
What is going on, Evan? Tell us, what is the bigger picture here? Why Canada?
Why Canada? Well, I guess they played Fallout 3, Mike, and they said that sounds like a good plot to follow. Otherwise, the reason why Canada is because they've got so many people invested in Canada, and if they can make it a satrapy to China instead of a satrapy to the US, I imagine they will, because Canada at the moment has very little backbone at all. I don't know what Canada pretends to be these days. It's not really its own territory. Everyone can walk over it, do whatever they want, steal, sequester resources away from the national interest. Like most Western countries, they've become interdependent on the world system. You know, you can't have your own oil. Some other foreign company controls your oil. You can't have your own roads. Some other foreign company
mining and water.
Yeah, well, communications, China, there you go. It'll either be the American conglomerate or it'll be the Chinese one. Both of them all send their data, internet data, through the same filtration network in America and the one in Europe.
Peter over there in Sydney just posted a comment, says, Canada's lost, no one is opposing anything there. Well, I'm here. I mean, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible because, you know, the demonizing of people in Canada could land me in jail, or demoralizing somebody could actually put me in jail here. There's there's no free speech here, you know?
That's right. Well, there's no free speech in a lot of places. This is one of the only countries where you can speak freely. It's enshrined in its little constitution. The Canadian constitution isn't very good, nor is the German one, because it tells you what you can't do. In the American one, it tells you what you can do, which is a far better way of doing it.
Yeah, because right now I have to be careful because I could land in a jail cell. Easy. I could land in a jail cell, and I could show you footage of a guy. I'm not going to mention his name, who's literally beaten the crap out of women, getting caught on CCTV, beating up women in restaurants, beating up women in boutiques in Vancouver, beating up women at the SkyTrain on camera. Same guy, and they can't hold him in jail for more than an hour, and he's always out. And this is his 7th attack now this week, where he beat up a woman, and she has a fractured jaw in the hospital. So they can't keep this guy in jail, but...
But you'd go straight to the slammer, Mike, if you made someone feel slightly unhappy, and maybe not even on the day. Could be months later, Mike. You made me feel bad. I remember clearly that you made me feel bad in that one little instance you were going to jail, Mike. I mean, the justice system doesn't help the average person. I mean, you've got delinquent children as well. I mean, there's great cases in Australia where you've got these delinquent children because the police can't touch them under the law. Adults can't discipline them under the law. So there was a case in my hometown where the Central nightclub, they have a skylight, a sky roof. What would you call it? A skylight. So
yeah, sky roof, yeah.
It is a sky roof also. Either or. And he wasn't allowed in, of course. Security guards did their job, disallowed him in. He was too young, didn't have identification. So he broke in out the back, climbed up, and smashed through the skylight, ended up with a fractured knee and some glass cuts, and he sued the nightclub for doing their job, and he won $500,000.
Yes, like that guy in California that was breaking into the house from the skylight in the roof, fell through the roof, fell on the kitchen table, or one of a table, I guess, and cut himself and sued and won.
That's right. And then you've got the other cases where you've got morbidly obese people or fat people, in other words, like really, really fat people, and they're walking along and they can barely, barely move at all. These sort of people. They use mobility scooters. Maybe that's how they solve the problem these days, just put them all on wheels. But a fat woman, same town, walking down the street, there was a crack, very minor crack in the pavement, not enough to stick a high heel shoe down, you know, the stiletto part of it. And she fell over, and she blamed that crack, which was like a hairline crack, but it was a visible hairline crack. And she sued the city, and she won, you know, just under $1 million, just giving money away. She got rewarded for not looking where she was going.
Wow. Wow.
That's Australia. Hong Kong never happened. If you fall over, they say, hey, be careful. That's about all you'll get. Which is what it should be.
So the article goes on saying Beijing's campaign of influence and intimidation in Canada, from which this essay is adopted. The Chinese Communist Party must be looking at the debacle over Huawei, I can't even say that, and the arrest of the chief financial officer. I don't think it's that. I think that barely scratches the surface. I think that
That's just the cover story.
Huh?
That's just the cover story, Mike. There'll be a lot behind the scenes that we don't see. They'll use that as
Can you see a Chinese takeover of Canada? Because a majority of the people living in the major cities now are Chinese.
No, but I mean, what's a major city without all its tentacles reaching out to the other areas, Mike? A city by itself is nothing. It's not like it's a city-state of old. They can't feed themselves, they can't water themselves, they can't supply materials themselves. They've very rarely got any sort of manufacturing. So, I mean, the cities themselves aren't that valuable, apart from having their names on the map.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, let's say they did take over the cities, Mike. I mean, a Canadian government would just say, here are the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, they could walk in tomorrow. The Canadian government would just say, here are the keys. If that's part of the worldwide agenda, like it usually is, Mike, consolidation of power, they'll do it. But I imagine they're not going for a neo-colonialism. They're going for a worldwide intelligentsia.
Economic takeover.
Yes. Well, no, not economic, Mike, because economically they all work together. It might seem like they're competing. I mean, we can benefit off the illusion of their competition. But in the end, all the trade routes are never interrupted. Never, ever. Those shipping lanes, they are constantly running. You never hear about shipping lanes being blocked off by the Chinese between Canada and China. Never happens. You never see the blockades because shipping and trade go on unabated while the puppet show goes on your television. I mean, how significant is Huawei? Not really. Not that significant. Canada has other options. Why, if she did something illegal, that should be the end of the story. When the media hype something, Mike, there's usually more to it. Some agenda they're trying to get you to surrender to. I don't know. Screaming woman. She agreed with me. That's what she said, Mike.
Okay.
Carry on.
Temperature drops. So I know, guys, anyone just joining the show right now, we're going to have Evan on the show on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Western Seaboard time, probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. My time, let the guys warm up. They're going to be debating global warming, so we're going to get into what's happening, because right now, are you ready for that, Evan, or what? Are you excited?
Well, I mean, we could go over the points now if you like. It wouldn't take long.
No. We got to keep this for Saturday. So because you got to debate this with Andrew Baker, so you got to debate it with him, right?
Well, I suppose, but I don't know how it can be a debate when one point of view is objectively false. I suppose. I mean, it's getting colder, Mike. How come? I thought it was supposed to be getting hotter. Stronger winters we had last year here. I believe it was last year or the end of the year before. December of last year. They had snow on the top of a mountain here, and it was a big deal because it's never happened before. And all the trendies were up there with their Instagram Instagram cameras trying to take pictures of ice crystals that you could readily get in your freezer. And a lot of them slipped over and injured themselves and got stranded on there because it was so cold that their little petrol cars weren't working properly. Most amusing. But it's getting warmer, Mike, apparently.
Okay, so we got temperatures in Chicago drop record-breaking low, and it's affecting 224 million people across the country, where it's below freezing. So I got this up here from the Clown News Network. What is going on? Why is it getting so cold? Is the sun moving away? Is the sunspots lack of sunspots? Is it the elliptic? The sun has its own orbit. A lot of people don't know that. Is the elliptic movement of the sun kind of veering, slightly tilting away, bringing us into a mini ice age? What's going on?
Well, it seems like whatever the weather is, it runs irrespective of the sun and the moon. Does it not, Mike?
Yes, it does.
The sun seems to have very little difference when it comes to weather. I mean, a good example of why the way they explain weather makes no sense, Mike. Where Sam is at the moment, he's in Karratha in Western Australia, and it's basically a massive desert, like totally uninhabitable, except a small slither of land on the coast, right? Then there's some hills, and then you've got the inland area, which is just total desert. If you walk for 15 minutes, you'd turn into a roast dinner. That's how hot it gets there. But all out of that desert, which is totally dry, you get rainstorms, like clockwork, in the summertime. Where's all the water coming from?
Interesting.
Interesting. I mean, clouds are supposed to form over the sea and come inland, but these are coming the total opposite way. It makes no sense whatsoever. There's no water out there, yet you've got this cloud formation. So meteorologists and their weather explanations aren't very accurate, because you think about it, the weatherman's one of the only professions who's allowed to be consistently wrong and still keep his job.
It's one of the very few jobs.
Well, I mean, when it comes to winters, Mike, we had some hot summers, and now it seems to be swinging back the other way. It tends to equalise itself out, doesn't it? It was a bit warm, and now it's getting a bit cold. Shocker. But I don't know how Andrew's going to get around that, because he can't call it climate change because he believes in global warming, and it's been rebranded into climate change. So I don't know what he's going to say. I'll be very curious to hear.
So what happened to global warming? Were they wrong, and then they have to call it climate change so they keep their agenda going?
Well, no, because if you remember, Mike, and I think I mentioned this last time we were talking, back in I think it was the very late 60s or very early 70s, everyone was talking about the coming ice age, and they had all the government agencies trying to legislate this, that, and the other, preparing for this ice age, and then it went hot, and now it's going cold again, and now people are saying ice age again. So it seems like you've got this pendulum of hot and cold swinging. Sometimes it swings more, sometimes it swings less, and then you've got, of course, governments around the world with weather modification. You can look that one up for China, Mike. They've got an entire bureau of people in the weather modification department. They've got an official government bureau.
We got Sam on the comment saying every night huge thunderstorms, island coast is dry here in Karratha. Evan's right.
I am. I live there. I remember what happened. You'd get absolutely, if you went inland, Mike, on an evening or a night, you'd just get washed away. Torrential rain, and then it would just all disappear every single night like clockwork. But it's not coming from the sea, it's not coming from evaporation, so then you have to ask why, and the scientists have no explanation at all. They say, you're crazy. That's about all they've got. They say, I'm a PhD, you have to listen to me. That's what they say. Okay,
I got another article from the Clown News Network. Australia sweltering through record-breaking heat, and the worst is yet to come. So, in the southern hemisphere, is it possible that the hotter it gets in the southern hemisphere, the colder it gets in the northern? Is that possible?
It tends to follow that pattern, I found. Like, for example, when the summer began here, the winter was quite cold, and their summer started earlier. And then it got warm here again, and then back over there it got colder. But here's the problem with that, Mike. If that happens on such a small scale in such a short amount of time, how can you have the Earth tilting faster and slower? You can't. Or spinning faster and slower? You can't. So that brings up an entire other issue, Mike, which would be far too hot a topic for our current discussion.
Okay.
Just giving you an out there, Mike.
Okay, so guys, we're going to interrupt our regular scheduled program to show you this man beating up a car.
Very good.
I don't know, some video that I've been watching this for years. I watch this at least once or twice a year. It's about some guy that starts freaking out, and then he says, "Let me show you something." So he just smashes this lady's car, and just dents it in, and breaks her windows, and yeah.
And then you wonder for what? I mean, I've seen that with my own eyes. People who have gone berserk, and then I have to drive them around in a taxi. You know, it's not a fun job when you're a taxi driver. Fortunately, I'm not a taxi driver these days, and I only did that for entertainment purposes. You see the real, what's the word? You see the real pulse of a nation when you drive a taxi, that's for sure. You see every kind of person.
Okay, so AMTV posted a new story, by the way, your friend over there at AMTV.
Oh, yes.
He posted that the U.S. looks like it will invade Venezuela soon. But Maduro said in a speech, "Manos fuera de Venezuela," hands off Venezuela. So he made it really clear that he doesn't want no American intervention there. And especially with the Venezuelan pride.
Yeah. I do know that guarantees, Mike.
You know. So, I don't know. Do you think it could be his way of saying to buy more preparative food kits?
I don't think it's the food kits thing, Mike. I think if I were to say, when it comes to Venezuela, let's ignore the conflict. Now there is a conflict. What is guaranteed? What is guaranteed is more weapon sales. What is guaranteed is a larger war budget, for sure. When they said, we are going to have a smaller budget, the budget increases every single time. So it seems like a lot of countries are getting an excuse to gear up for war. If you think about it, China's already geared up for war. They've got their propaganda campaigns going full swing in China. They're painting new murals, you know, communist era war murals, that sort of thing. That's all popping up in China. And they're, you know, incentivizing people to join the armed forces, either via propaganda or financial incentive. And America doesn't really have that excuse. So if they get the Venezuelan thing going, then all of a sudden they have an excuse to, you know, rearm and remilitarize, do they not? And then everyone's primed and ready for more conflict. Perhaps smaller wars, perhaps larger ones. But we haven't not had a war ever. So it's always a constant. It is the reserve currency of the world, Mike.
So violence. If you were to look at, let's say, 200 years of Americans' independence, I think they were at war 197 years of the 200 years, for example.
Yes. I mean, well, technically, at the beginning, it was civil war, and that was ongoing. So I don't think there was ever a peacetime. Do you think so, Mike? Not a total peace.
No, there was never told. The only time I could tell you that there was a time of relevant peace was during the Reagan administration. I know.
Yeah.
During the Reagan administration there was the
Cold War.
Yes, but there was something else happening in Guyana or in.
You mean Noriega? You mean that thing, the Noriega thing?
But that was George Walker Bush.
But it was that was at the end of it, the Noriega thing.
Yeah, Manuel Noriega, right?
Problem. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. There was really no major conflict during the Reagan administration. It's just when old Bush went in and started the Iraq War, and then from there you started to get little bushfires of wars in and around those areas, and then you started getting civil unrest there, and then you had every other president was in war. Was pretty much the Clinton administration wasn't too much in war too. He was more in the bed.
Oh, he was more in the bed with all the drug cartels and the arms dealers and the oil oligarchs, and we just got to go into the Gulf War. We gotta, and the aftermath of that as well. You had Bush, and then you had Clinton perpetuating it, and The Clinton administration should have been famous for admitting MK Ultra, and no one knows they ever did that. And you see when he does it in that interview, big smiles like a PR guy. You know, look at us, ho ho ho. We've been torturing people, ho ho ho. This is normal for us. Look at me smile. Let me off the hook, please. Look at me smile. It's what a lot of people do when they try to get away with something. You know, they burn your house down and they'll giggle and smile at you and hope that you'll go away. It's a very bad character trait in a lot of these Weasley type people, Mike.
So I'm looking at the divide here between Canada obviously follows the U.S., and then you got Mexico, apparently that's on side with Cuba and Venezuela, and then you got Russia, China, Iran, Turkey. So I mean, they got some the Russia, China, Iran, Turkey. I mean, you don't want to mess around with Russia and China, Iran too.
If it were pure military, Mike, yes, you wouldn't want to, because
no, you don't want to mess with those countries.
And Russia's got the tech.
Mexico has a decent sized army too. Like Canada couldn't defend itself against Mexico if they invaded us.
No, probably not. I mean, the only advantage you'd have is geographical advantage in Canada, because you've got mountains and whatnot, but all of your assets aren't on mountains. That's the problem. They're all in the valleys. But when it comes to regular war, Mike, if we just crunch the numbers, it would be unwise for any country to engage in such a war. However, it's not just the numbers they crunch. They have agendas and plans that we don't know about. But I know for a fact they'll be in an attempt to unify and consolidate their power until such a time they have such a dictatorship, such a control system, that none can oppose them. That's what they want. They want total control. There are no other options but the ones I give you. That's what they want. So Russia might seem independent now, but maybe they'll integrate again like they were trying to do with America. They had the Amero ready to go, and then they erased that, if you recall, Mike.
The Amero, yeah, the Amero was ready to go. It was supposed to occupy North America under one currency.
That's right. And then when the Mexican president called Trump, he was saying NAFTA, 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 and Trump had just finished saying no NAFTA. We're not going to call it NAFTA anymore. American president gets called NAFTA again. Oh, dear. But, I mean, America's got all sorts of territories that they could further consolidate. But it's all an illusion, Mike. It's all an illusion, to put it in simple terms for everybody. It's all a trick to keep you distracted. Carry on. Okay.
We set a world record today. Biggest world record breaking amount of fentanyl was seized at legal border crossings. I want to ask, this question. Could this be, wow, 250 pounds. Holy, the druggist bust of ultra-potent synthetic opioid ever recorded by the department. Wow. Wow. Okay, now, could this be an act of war? In a way, where why is this coming? Could it be taken as a way to destabilize a country in a way?
Yes. I mean, that's all the war on drugs ever was. I mean, they said we're going to have a war on this, a war on that. The wars never end whenever they declare one. And the war on drugs was just a war on the people. I mean, when they declared it, there wasn't much of a drug problem, but the media is used as the engine to over-represent the problem, whether it's minorities, decadence, or, Christian bad, must smash, that sort of thing. Those sort of problems. The media is there to make it a problem, so you get a national discussion, and then they legislate against the majority, which had nothing to do with the problem in the first place. So it would not surprise me if this... did they have the Guinness World Record assessor there with the blue suit and the certificate when the fentanyl came in?
No, they got a bunch of posters that say fentanyl, meth, and a couple of guards standing beside it. And there's a beautiful draped, massive table draped with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection on it. It's got balloons and everything.
That's good branding, Mike. Very good branding. But a lot of those drug busts, they just recirculated anyway, don't they? That's the Australian policy, especially. They'll seize the seize the drugs, reintroduce the drugs, because they don't make money off the drugs, they make money off criminal prosecution, don't they? They make the money off the fines and fees. So as long as they can keep perpetuating the fines and fees, you will end up with a profit-seeking organisation. I mean, especially in Australia, because I don't know if you know, Mike, but all Australian, well, even the Australian government is copyrighted. Security and Exchange Commissions in Washington is where it's registered, and every government department is a corporation, so it's all for profit, and they all have business numbers. So, you know, you don't even have a government anymore. You have an oversized bureaucracy seeking rent off you, and you must pay or else. That's what we've got.
I got something really interesting, So it says here, the truck was carting cucumbers from Mexico through a border crossing in Nogales, Arizona. When officers unearthed the fentanyl, nearly 400 pounds of methamphetamine, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's a combined value of $4.5 million, likely enough fentanyl to kill tens of millions of people.
Yes.
Holy smokes! That's worse than a war!
How do they assess the price of these drugs, I wonder? That would be my question next. How do they know the street price of fentanyl? They must be down on the ground checking it out. But yes, they want to poison and sicken people. Generally, they don't want to kill people, Mike. It's like with cancer treatment. You're better off treating them forever. But if you can get them in a crippling addiction to a drug, then they will have lots of side effects that you can then treat, you know?
Oh, God, I'll be out of here.
Well, there's no shortage of bad news, mate. You know what they say, no news is good news.
So Hillary is not closing the door on the 2020 election. Hillary Clinton floats 2020 presidential run. Look, I'm not closing the doors to this. This was posted today. I mean, when is she just going to give up? I mean, does she honestly feel she has a chance to win? Evan, do you think she has a chance to win?
I like the headline before we get into that answer, Mike. She floats. Of course she does. You throw a witch in the water, they float. But no, I mean, she's just going to be the supplied opposition. Seems like they want... Trump's a very good brand name for the PR company called the American government. So I think they'll keep Trump in because he's popular at the moment. And they're making the media seem irrelevant so they can bring in state-controlled media and all that other stuff, you know. Fake news, we're going to have a war on fake news, but the fake news we're talking about is actually the truth. Sorry, Mike, you can't have a news channel anymore, that sort of thing. They use that, it sounds good, but the application is always wrong with these people. You'll find it every time. We're going to have a war on drugs, we're going to wipe out drugs. Record fentanyl imports, fantastic. Coming in cucumbers and pineapples. Usually pineapples, Mike, that's their favourite one. Because you've got the hardened shell, they core out the pineapple and they put bags in it. Yeah. Just so you know, in case you wanted to ship any magic cards a bit cheaper in shipping containers later.
Wow. You want to hear a nice dose of fake news? Expert ranked the best U.S. president as Barack Obama.
Clinton. Oh, I was going to say it was going to be Hillary Clinton. That'd be even funnier, wouldn't it? Because she never made president. Obama, yeah, he got the Nobel Peace Prize for killing more people under any presidency than ever. So I suppose that makes sense too. The way the opposite is always true of what they say, Mike, is it not? Yeah. As they say, here's a Nobel Peace Prize. You're for all peace and truth and all that, and then you've murdered a load of people. No Peace Prize revoked. And then you've got Saudi Arabia on the Humanitarian Board of Human Rights, China on the Humanitarian Board of Human Rights, and all the other jokes they try and foist on you, Mike. They don't want standards, they just want you to nod and smile. If you nod and smile, you've given them consent. That's what they want. They want your permission to keep doing what they're doing.
I want to look this up. India-China border wall. India-China border war. Is that still a thing?
It's ongoing. I mean, they don't really have like full skirmishes or anything. It'll just be one troop going slightly over a line somewhere, or China antagonizing them, or India throwing rocks across at them, and then they start shooting each other if you're lucky. But it's been ongoing for what? well over a decade, Mike. India, Pakistan was the bigger problem. They're still having a border dispute.
Oh, India and Pakistan will never end. It's forever. But I'm talking about like India and China is more concerning because they're both big powers, and India and China have been having border war, this border war for many. I'm looking at some historical images here, and quite a few people died at those high altitudes, eh?
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, the region that usually is disputed is like the region near Nepal and very southwesterly regions, you know, past Tibet. If you go past Tibet, that's where the border disputes tend to happen. But I mean, let's say China and India decided to go to war over something so small as a few people crossing a line, then China would be overextended, and everyone would come to the aid of India if that were the chess move that was being played. I believe. You know, why would you overextend? That's America's policy of overextension. They've got military bases everywhere, black sites everywhere. You can be renditioned without charge.
So here's India and China sitting across from each other. There's Pakistan and Russia. Yeah, there's that border dispute's been going on for like the last million years. So here it is. Here's the one here right at the border. That's the main border.
Yes.
Right at the border there, and
east and west, Mike. East and east, really. I mean,
because I thought that was going to be a powder keg there for the longest time, and it is still in the news. It's called the Sino-Indian relations.
Yes.
China infrastructure. It's called the Chinese infrastructure wars.
Well, the reason why they're having conflicts, Mike, is because China's been really trying to push that one belt, one road. And, I mean, they've got most of it in. I mean, they might not get all of it in immediately, but eventually they will, because they'll wait, and then they'll implement it. The moment you turn your back, they'll implement something. And the reason why the media wants to distract people is the same reason. The moment you turn your back, they'll implement something, you know. When everyone was distracted about 9/11, what did they put forward, Mike? And what did they get through?
Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda, Patriot Act, anti-terrorism bills, the 7/7 bombing. While everyone was distracted with that, what did they get through? When Princess Diana was ritually, well, you know, whatever happened there, the ritual murder of Princess Diana, what happened there? What did they put through? What sort of foreign assets were being shuffled around? What budgets were being approved? Every time there's a major distraction, Mike, watch out, because they're going to do something nefarious when you're not looking.
Because what's going on here is apparently this is how the story kicked off and what the problem was. China moved 25 kilometers into Indian territory and claimed that the border was there.
Yes. Oh, that's usually what it is. It's like, this is the border now. And they go, no, that's not the border. Yes, it is the border.
They're calling it Chinese intrusions. And, yeah, they have had 73 intrusions until the end of 2018.
Well, I mean, the best sort of borders are water, Mike, because you can't really argue with water. But then you argue with the territory around the water. Just like the joke with Chile and Bolivia. That's why when you see a Bolivian, you say, how's the surfing weather in Bolivia? And they'll all start crying because they don't have any water anymore. Nor do they have the territory around. They don't even have the territorial water. They're landlocked now. So, I mean, geographically, if they declare it's theirs, you have to defend it. And the problem is, greedy people will say everything's theirs, won't they? That's mine, that's mine, that's mine. Now you got to defend it.
So we got Steve the Plumber in the comments saying, I thought I should let you know that Canadian banks will start to call in HELOCs shortly. Canadian banks are currently reviewing all HELOC loans on the books that are maxed out. And yeah. So,
Australia. How about that, Mike?
Yeah,
Australia, they're all going to go to principal and interest. They're all starting to switch over, so you'll see bankruptcies galore in Australia. You won't be able to refinance. That's the thing. They lured you in with easy money, then they make it, you know, incredibly. What's the word?
Don't get me started with that. You know how upset I get on my show about that.
Oh, yes, yes. But you know what I mean, mate? They lure you in and then they reel in the fish, don't they? And you're left with nothing. Not even a fish. That's what they're doing, entrapping people in debt, Mike. Because if you're in debt, who do you serve?
Yeah.
You can't serve two masters, Mike.
You can't serve two masters. You're right.
But what else? What else, Mike? Are there any other articles on
No,
your...
I'm just looking here. I'm just looking at... So, what countries are still trying to fight for independence from China?
Bhutan would be one. No one talks about that country. I mean, it's in China. China says they own it. Taiwan, China says they own Taiwan. And if you go to Taiwan, and you've been to Taiwan, I've been to Taiwan.
I've been to Taipei, yeah.
Yeah, driven up and down that place. And I can tell you right now, it's not China. You know, and they're very, very, very fiery about that. If you say that they're part of China, and the American bases there, and all of that, and the military drills constantly. It's the bottle on the champagne, the cork on the bottle that is champagne that is China. If Taiwan goes, China will expand outwards exponentially. But even now, Russia and Japan are having a fight over some islands, Mike. I don't know if you know about that.
Let's look it up. Russia and Japan, eh?
Yep. I think it's three islands. Three islands. I mean, Japan just bought islands off Russia a bit further north, larger than the entire geographic. This was several years ago. Larger than all of Japan, anyway, these islands. Japan bought them off them when they were doing their spending spree, and no one talks about that either. Why
so
would
you're
you
looking
need
at Shikotan and Habomia?
That sounds about right, yes. Very good pronunciation, Mike.
Intro
with the crowd.
Kunushir. So...
Three islands would be.
Okay, so they're disputing. What's going on? What can you tell us so far?
Well, at the end of World War II, Mike, as Japan was getting firebombed into the ground, not nuked, firebombed, look at the seismic data. Oh, wait, you can't, because they took it away only on those days. Back to the point. When Japan was capitulating, Soviets took those three islands. And Japan says, no, there are islands. And that's been going on for a while. Japan wants those islands back. I mean, they're not that significant, but they are, greater expansion of territory. You could put naval bases on it. You could have fisheries and agricultural centers, like Japan likes to put all around their islands, lots of fisheries. So Russia keeps saying no, and they're not reaching an agreement. And each time it's being put forward even more aggressively. I don't think it'll result in a military conflict, because those two countries technically are still at war. They never signed a peace agreement. But I don't think they'll actually fight about it. They'll reach some sort of settlement at some point. It won't be as fiery as the border between India and China, because the significance of the islands isn't that great, but Japan sure wants them back. Sure wants to keep them Japanese. Given they've got Japanese names and Russian names,
okay.
I imagine that
the easiest way to solve this problem... dude, they got Portuguese names in Macau, dude. So...
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they've got Portuguese names in Nagasaki and places like that in Japan, because you had the Dutch quarters, the Portuguese quarters, and all of that there. There's still the buildings there today. A lot of those colonial-style buildings, very, very nice buildings that you're not allowed to have anymore. You've got to have ugly tilt-ups that are made out of balsa wood, if you're lucky, usually reconstituted balsa wood and tissue paper, and they last about as long as it takes to buy one. That's what we have in the Western world these days.
Okay, so I got this here. Okay, they're called the Kuril Islands.
Yes.
Now, do the people that live on those islands are Japanese people?
Both. There are Russians there as well. But I imagine they're quite well integrated.
Because if the people that live there are Japanese, then it would be considered Japanese islands. But if the people that live there are Russian, then, I mean, it's Russian, because they're Russian there, right?
But then all you'd have to do, let's say Russia owns the territory right now, and that's the basis for the judgment, they'd just import some soldiers, wouldn't they? That's all they'd have to do. I mean, I don't know if that would solve the problem unless you made the decision a spot decision. I don't think they'd ever agree to that. Then there's all the Geneva Conventions and the UN charters they've got to get around when dividing and donating territory. They've created a legal system that paralyzes any sort of action.
Okay, because these islands go right to the Russian continent. We got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 islands.
Yes. So what would 3 islands matter? Well, apparently any amount of territory lost is an amount of territory lost, Mike. Just can't have it. When you got a nationalist president or prime minister, or whichever one he's feeling like at the time, I suppose, with Putin, you can't really give away islands. Not when you're pushing nationalism.
Interesting. Interesting.
It is, Mike. There's a lot going on that people don't talk about.
Okay. Let me see if there's anything else, because this was supposed to be a 1-hour Mike in the Night special going over some of the big topics. We covered the cold weather, a bit of Venezuela. We covered what was this for Canada we covered? Hold on. Oh yeah, Canada and China tensions. We covered India's authorizing cryptocurrencies, and the humanitarian crisis in Yemen is phenomenal.
Yes, colossal, ongoing for years.
Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I just can't believe so many people are displaced.
Well, it shows how much the governments of the world care about the people, Mike, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what's that's
love and care is what they share, isn't it, Mike? Bomb, 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 kaboom. That's it.
Okay, Evan.
But anyway.
Okay,
yes.
Evan. I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to feel the pinch here.
Well, we went on a lot longer than you expected, Mike.
Yes, yes. I want to thank you for coming on and kind of filling the void, because Saturday we're going to have this huge debate that everyone's been talking about. There's people like all over the world talking about this right now, so it's going to be a very interesting debate.
That's right, international debate.
Guys,
East versus West.
Guys, keep posted. Keep posted on the channel, guys. I might come back on live. Apparently, Steve the Plumber has some very important news about the Bank of Canada, so I might restream live in the next 5 minutes. If anybody is interested, I might be restreaming live in 5 more minutes. So we're going to end the transmission here with my man, Evan. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. And guys, I want to thank everyone that's been hitting me up in the tip jar. Thank you very much. It's not a cheap... This is not a cheap... It's not cheap doing this, Evan. I've been doing some of the math and calculating all the hours I've been putting into this. It's not cheap, Evan.
You're a charity, Mike. That's what you are. You're a charity.
Yeah. It's really tough. Like,
but are you happy to do it, Mike? Are you happy to do it? That's the question.
I'm happy. Oh, I'm happy. I wouldn't be happy if I wouldn't do this if I wasn't. I wouldn't be happy.
That's right. So, better to keep doing it, Mike. It will. The dividends that will return will be far greater than gold. How about that?
Yes, Evan. I hope God hears you.
Ah, he hears everything, Mike. Don't you worry.
All right. God bless you, Evan.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. See you Saturday.
See ya.
Well, guys, that's Evan. I might come back live in a few minutes with Steve the Plumber. I just got to run a few things here around the house. And if he wants to come on and talk, or if he wants to I'm just reading the comments, guys. I'm sorry. Mike would just be playing handheld video games if he was not doing this. All these compliments. Yeah, Steve, if it's a breaking story and you really oh, the climate change debate or global warming debate is going to be here on this backup channel, because my main channel won't. It's February today, so I won't be able to stream until pretty much the end of March. So we got another 8 weeks on this channel for live streaming, then it could go back to my video game channel. But we keep this channel as a backup, a little speakeasy. So in the front, it looks like a video game channel, so they don't look too deep. But you know how it works, right? But we're here underneath, under these layers, and nobody knows, right? So it's kind of like a speakeasy, the handheld junkie, handheld video game speakeasy. You know what I'm saying? Okay, guys. Debatable if I come back on tonight. I just got Steve's message. I'll just call Steve after, and we'll go over what's going on. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and thank you so much for hitting me up in the tip jar, guys. I really need this. It means a lot to me, and it's good. Thank you.